Hello, all, and welcome back to a new episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we are going to be reviewing the much anticipated Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. And y'all, we could not review this film without two of our favorite people ever, Klarissa and Sara. They were on our episode, which we reviewed an incredible film, The Black Bag, which, my gosh, go watch that movie. But we are going to be diving in together to discuss Frankenstein. So Klarissa and Sara, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, oh my gosh. Well, I cannot even tell you enough how excited I've been for this episode, but also just to mostly be back on with you guys. This is so much fun. But like you guys said, I'm Klarissa at I've Seen That One. I have a show myself and an Instagram, but I'm just so happy to be here.
Yay, I'm also so happy to be here. I'm Sara Shea from Shea Cinema. This was my most eagerly anticipated movie of 2025, so I felt like I've been waiting for it for well over a year, and I immediately told you guys, this is the one show that I must be on. Must do it, must do it, must do it, and it has been like waiting. So waiting for Frankenstein to come out was like waiting for Christmas, and then waiting to be able to record with y'all about this has also been like Christmas, and now Christmas is here and I literally have goosebumps. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I think like out of all of the like content planning guest spots that we had on our docket, we were like, we have to do this one together with the two of you, like non-negotiable. We will move mountains and rivers and valleys in order to figure out how to make this happen. So yeah, gosh, there's so much to talk about. This is gonna be a fun combo, y'all. So
oh yeah,
there's lots to discuss. Sarah, do you want to give us an IMDb summary for Frankenstein to kick us off?
Sure. Dr. Victor Frankenstein, a brilliant but egotistical scientist, brings a creature to life in a monstrous experiment that ultimately leads to the undoing of both the creator and his tragic creation.
Oh, dun dun dun!
That is good.
That's a really good IMDb summary. Sometimes I have qualms with the IMDb summary, but I'll say that one's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, in Movies in Us tradition, we like to start off with our one sentence summaries. So, as our guests, Klarissa or Sara, do you want to share your one sentence summary for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein?
Yes. Okay, so of course, just like last time, I feel like I come up with a million of these, and so then I narrow it down to a couple, and then I get like my heart set. So at first I really wanted to go with actually a quote from a different movie. What?
Ooh, throw us for a loop. Okay, we're ready.
So I am pulling a Jurassic Park quote.
No.
Yeah, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Oh,
yeah. Ooh. So that's my like quote. But in the heart of not stealing from other writers, I will say the one that I wrote myself was quote unquote monster is debatable.
Oh, I love it. Yes, that is like Del Toro's thesis for like his life, his work. I think.
Literally,
well
yes.
Well
right?
Done.
Yeah. Thank you.
So good.
That one's a t-shirt. Telling you right now.
Right? Thank you. Fine, I'll hop on Ride Bubble.
Yeah. Sara Shea, hit us with your one sentence summary.
Same. I could not do just one, but of course you're dealing with people who are teachers essentially, right? And English teachers, so you signed up for this. I'm like, what's the really bad one is, so beautiful I don't care about inaccuracies.
Nice.
Oh, I love that so much.
Love.
I need that on a shirt too.
Yes.
I can parade the world with that.
It could be about a lot of things, right? Then nope, skipping that one. But then I wrote a haiku because of course I did. Okay. gentle creature needs hugs, but has daddy issues.
Oh,
Victor is the worst.
Too good.
dead.
Yes, that's
I'm
incredible.
I can't. I have to. I'm so sorry.
I love
No.
it so much, and it's a haiku.
And it's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
You slay the game. Wow. Okay. My gosh, I think it's one of our favorite one sentence summaries ever.
Yeah,
Me too.
I don't think we've ever had a haiku in our
No.
one sentence summaries before. So that's
have not.
incredible.
Yeah. Well
Wow.
done.
You just like upped the game.
Thank you. I feel like Mary Shelley would be proud,
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
but not
Victor
Lord Byron.
is the worst is my favorite. Yeah, part of that. We've lost.
I'm like in daddy issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So great.
Sarah with an H. Hit us with your one sentence summary.
Yeah, mine is in matters of life and death, manners matter.
Ooh.
Love it. And true.
Wow. Wow.
Also
Well
very
done.
true.
True.
Well done.
Say please. Please always helps.
My one sentence summary is an epic gothic origin story for the MCU's new adventure. Okay, well, let's
Great.
dive in. We're going to share our high level thoughts about Frankenstein. We're not going to spoil this movie quite yet, but it is available on Netflix. It is available to stream and watch in your own home. So, my gosh, go watch this film. But we're going to share kind of our initial thoughts about this film. I would love to hear everyone's kind of relationship to Del Toro as a creator. It sounds like you two are very excited for this movie, so I'm assuming you guys are fans. But just kind of the anticipation for this film, and then did it live up to the hype and the energy that you had for it or not? So, Clarissa or Sarah, hit us with your high-level temperature checks for this film.
Okay, so as I said, this was my most anticipated movie of the year. I feel like I probably made a noise out loud when I heard that this was a film that was going to be happening, and that not only was it going to be a new adaptation of Frankenstein, which I am intimately familiar with, but also that it was going to be Del Toro doing it. And I immediately felt safe with him being the director. There are lots of times when things get adapted and people get really nervous about it. For example, the new Wuthering Heights adaptation that's coming down the road. Is it actually an adaptation? People are worried about it, but that's fine. And I think that we have a director there who's a little bit more controversial. Del Toro knows creatures. He's always known creatures. The very first movie that I remember seeing of his was Hellboy when that came out in theaters, and I loved it and was super obsessed with it. And essentially that's been his career more or less, right? He does this type of stuff so well. So the fact that he was making it was part of the thrill and part of the excitement. However, every adaptation of Frankenstein has kind of been fraught with issues regarding, has it really been adapted accurately? The very first Frankenstein movie, which helped start off, right, Universal monsters and all of that type of stuff, that movie is 67 minutes long. It's glorious, but it's only the story of Frankenstein and the creature in a limited sense, right? I use it in my class to help teach the novel, to say this is not the story, right? But we can understand elements that are interesting about it, etc., etc. This movie did not live up to my expectations, but it also exceeded my expectations in some ways. So I watched it the first time and I saw it in the theater, and like I made sure like I had to go see it in the theater. I was just like, this has to be something that I do, and I had mentioned to some people that I was going to go do it, and then I never talked about it because I was like, I have to keep it inside. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to say anything about it. So seeing it on the big screen was absolutely the right choice. As I said, it's so beautiful that I don't care about the inaccuracies that exist in the story. I was conflicted after my first viewing. I was physically blown away by what I was watching. I was deeply moved by this story, and yet I was mad about stuff that was left out or things that were inserted or all of those types of things. However, once I was able to rewatch it at home, once it was available for streaming, I watched it obsessively, and I really thought about my excitement about Del Toro adapting the story. He clearly knows Frankenstein just as well as I know Frankenstein, as a lover of literature, as a lover of the story, as someone who wants to use the story and present it in a new way. The things that he took out, the things that he introduced, the things that are completely non-existent in the novel are all there for a reason. And I think that if you take this movie in a vacuum, it is so beautiful and wonderful and horrifying that it's okay that it doesn't match up with the text exactly. I think it stands alone by itself as a wonderful, wonderful piece of art. There's definitely things to criticize in terms of his decisions, but I think that the decisions that he made were in the service of his storytelling, which in terms of the themes of the novel, while not being accurate to what's written on the page, are absolutely accurate in terms of ideas, concepts, feelings, emotions, storytelling, all of that type of stuff. So was not what I expected, but also ultimately, once I was able to sit with it, shut up. Just so good.
That's so
Love
fascinating
it.
to see the way that like expectations can shape your initial experiences, but kind of giving yourself over to the story actually allowed you to experience the story as he intended in its
Mhm.
fullest form. And that love and that appreciation grew over time as you kind of shed the previous things and just
Yes.
like, okay, Del Toro, what do you want to do with me? I'm yours, I guess. Take me on a journey. Yeah.
Well, and what's so crazy is we just finished reading Frankenstein in my 12th grade English classes,
Yeah.
and kids really
Wow.
identified with the creature. Like, they loved reading it. They were so into it. And we watched the original one from 1931, and they actually enjoyed it more or less. And I said,
Mm.
are you going to, I had them do some essay writing, and I asked them many, many questions. But one of the things that I asked them was, are you going to watch the new version?
Yeah.
And if you could make your own movie version of this, what do you think would be the most important elements to include?
Oh,
Right? What has
yeah.
to be in there? Because the new one is supposed to be more accurate. Now, it is and it's not. Okay. But I didn't know that at the time when I was having them write about this. Across the board, the kids said you need to have the creature be educated, and he needs to be able to talk and communicate, and there needs to be this dissonance between Victor and the creature
Mm.
and how they function together. But the creature can communicate and can talk, which he does not do in most film versions. And guess what? This version does that absolutely.
Yeah. So good. So good. Fascinating. Yeah, to see the way that what they've picked up on is
Yes,
kind of the essence of the story. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So fascinating. Clarissa, tell us your thoughts about what you thought going into this Frankenstein experience that Toro has constructed, and then, yeah, the feelings afterwards, the ride of emotions afterwards, perhaps even as they've changed over time.
Totally. Okay, so I like first off really love Guillermo del Toro. I was first introduced to him as a kid. I think I saw Pan's Labyrinth when I was 7, and my parents they had like filtering software that they used for us kids. Like I grew up in a really religious home. And so they were willing to show us like rated R movies at any time because of this. And so I was introduced to these creatures and these stories from a really young age. And I just knew what I was seeing was super special. And so like as I got older and I was a little bit more cognizant of like directors and like, oh, I'm liking this group of films because it's the same director kind of a thing. I kind of found my way to that. And so when I heard it was Guillermo del Toro doing this, I was like, same thing. I trust him. I trust him. I trust him with these creatures. I think too, we kind of see similar-ish themes in Crimson Peak, which is one of his films. And I feel like those creatures were displayed so beautifully or like created so beautifully to also reflect those themes. And so going into it, I was like, I feel like if he can do it in Crimson Peak, and I love that movie, I totally trust him to do this. Now, it was really hard to stay up because I also have had a pretty busy semester. And so I didn't get to this movie until like a week and a half ago. And so I was still hearing things. And I heard some people's gripes, even though I was trying to avoid it. But I had enough time away from the gripes to go in with like a clean, fresh slate. And I still just kind of was like, take it for what it is. And I couldn't really see any of the issues that people were throwing my way with it, which was actually really beneficial because I feel like sometimes when you hear people share opinions, it's like, oh, even if I'm not meaning to, I feel like I have that in the back of my mind. And that kind of didn't happen for me. I was just so sucked into this story and the way that it was told and the visuals that every like preconceived notion left my mind. Like at first I was of course keeping the Boris Karloff creature in mind, and and then that disappeared. I was like, I love Boris Karloff and like that really fun Universal like early adaptation, but this I think was just special enough and so engulfing of an experience that they just left my mind even if I had tried. And that speaks so much to the film, I think. I'm a little bummed because next semester I'm doing a literature and film class, and we are only reading Frankenstein and we are only watching Frankenstein adaptations all semester. So I will reach out and share some feelings. Yes. Sarah's having some feelings. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be like so amazing. But I feel like I'm really excited to break this movie down independently before I dive into all of those things. So going into it, it's interesting because like I've never read the book. And so this was kind of my first introduction to a lot of these things on Frankenstein. I had seen But I Haven't Lucas Meet Frankenstein every year for Halloween since I was little. And I had seen the Boris Karloff adaptation. And I think I saw, oh my gosh, I think I've seen a couple different versions, but there were quite a few I actually haven't really seen. And so it was nice to go into this and just be like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing this story for the first time in a way. Of course I'd seen Young Frankenstein, like all those fun campy things, but yeah, so like there were a lot of things that I was introduced to in the original story for the first time. Again, like Sara Shea was saying, like he doesn't typically talk, but we have this really intimate and sweet, almost like coming of age story.
Yeah.
Like kind of tender and cute. And I was reflecting back on like Bride of Frankenstein things of like some of that story, seeing like little pieces and but not enough. And now we're seeing it, and so I loved that. And so yeah, this was just like a really special experience. This was really good. I loved it.
So good. So it's fascinating to see the way that like you also just got sucked into, I think you said engulfed at one point into the story, which I feel like is such a great way to describe what happens to you when you watch this movie. You just get sucked into this world that he's created. So good.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to see what comes out of that next class, though. So you'll have to keep us.
Me too.
Yeah, you'll have to keep us updated.
Deal.
Sarah, what were your thoughts about Frankenstein and the experience, the anticipation, and then the ultimate actual viewing experience of getting to watch Frankenstein?
Yeah, so I was excited about this film too. I remember reading Frankenstein in ninth grade and I
Mm.
loved it. I have just always been a sucker for classic literature and yep, loved this book, but I haven't read it since ninth grade. So that was my mission, was to reread Frankenstein, and it rocks. It's such a good book. Like,
Mm.
holy crap, I was blown away by it all over again. Like, I finished reading it today, so I'm still like, wow,
Wow.
this book is incredible. So everybody go read Frankenstein. It's great. And so I have that because I've been like immersed in the book.
Mm.
So I struggled with this movie. For me, it's a mixed bag. It is beautiful. What Del Toro has accomplished is absolutely incredible. This is a stunning film to watch. A lot of the themes, like Sara Shea mentioned, are there and woven in. He just gets to it a little bit different way. My struggle is I like how the book got there more than the way that the movie got there. I have some issues with the pacing. There were parts of the film that I just kind of started to check out of. I was like, I don't need this. I don't need this character. I don't. Why are we going down this route? There's some choices that are made with some certain characters that I'm like, that doesn't quite work for me. So like, from a story perspective and a pacing perspective and some of the lines of dialogue, I was like, this is not working for me. But it is gorgeous. Like, it is so cool to look at, especially if you go and watch the like behind the scenes little like mini documentary that Netflix has. It makes you appreciate everything that went into this. So this is a triumph. Like, holy cow, this is a very well made film. It's, for me, just a little bit more of a mixed bag when it comes to the story.
And is that because of partially just the expectations of the original, like the truly the process of adaptation that is sometimes hard and challenging when you're so familiar and so acquainted with the original?
I think so. The first time, because now I've watched the movie twice. So the first time I
Yeah.
watched the movie, I was only like, I don't know, 30 pages into the book. Like, I wasn't very far in.
Mm.
And I still had issues with like the pacing and the story and some of the character choices. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
buy this character making this choice. And so then now, having rewatched it after having finished the book,
Yeah.
I still feel that way.
Mm.
I appreciate what Del Toro has done, and like Sarah Shea mentioned, it is his version of this. He knows the story so well. He knows these characters so well. He intentionally made these choices. They just all didn't quite work for me.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely adored Frankenstein. I was at a Thanksgiving get together a couple days ago with someone who shared that they were not a fan, and not because they didn't like the adaptation of it. They just didn't like it. And I had to like restrain myself from crawling across the table to go take about. I smitten with the way that Del Toro does filmmaking. I think that it is such a uh, he's proven his craft to be able to earn the ability to make a film like this. But I think that there's something incredibly magical about the care and attention with which he brings to creating worlds that feel lived in, that engulf you into the story. And so, regardless of what it is, you just feel like this is a place in a world that you want to escape to and experience a story through. I think that there's some choices actually from a story perspective, especially in the third act, that I don't totally love that Del Toro's making. But I think it is indicative of like the headspace that he's in right now and wanting to give to the world around these stories of where we come from, who we think that we can become, and what reconciliation ultimately is or isn't possible, that I think is like very very relevant to the times that we're living in, and almost his way of trying to give an antidote of some kind to the state of society right now that feels very intentional and feels very specific. I was a huge fan of The Shape of Water, which I famously made Sarah watch during an Oscar wager with a film that I got to pick for us to watch. And I think that The Shape of Water has so many similar themes to this. and there's very much in line with like kind of the things that Del Toro is clearly captivated by, that he's infusing so deeply into Frankenstein, that has been his passion project for since childhood to be able to make. And so I think that's a fascinating look into like who this creator is and what he cares about and what he wants to say to the world. And whether you agree with it or not, I think like doesn't actually matter as much. I think it's more just fascinating to see like this is what he wants to give to us. And I got sucked into it. I think that there's an appreciation for other like crafts within filmmaking that I think he's also allowing space and spotlight for, that I really just am a fan of, that are sometimes underappreciated, and should be recognized a little bit more. So all of the production design, the makeup and hair, the costume design that really add to the story, he is giving a full stage to showcase all that they do for this craft that we love so much. So, for that too, I really appreciate what he does. So, all right, those were kind of our high level thoughts, all of our emotional journeys with Frankenstein, all of the different temperatures and mixed feelings that we have and passions that we have for what Del Toro's done with Frankenstein. This is your spoiler to go experience the film for yourself. Actually go watch this and then the anatomy of what is it, anatomy of something,
The Anatomy Lesson, I think, is what it's
the
called.
Anatomy Lesson, yeah, on Netflix, that really goes into the behind the scenes of how they created this film. So go watch this thing, come back and listen to the rest of our conversation. So this is your spoiler alert. All right, we now have full freedom to dive into anything and everything that we would like to. I'm curious, maybe we can each share, like, what are some of the specific choices that Del Toro makes with this adaptation, with the story, that you found most surprising or most interesting, that you just kept thinking about in the days and the weeks after getting to watch this film? What were some of those kind of bold choices that he swung for, that you're like, okay, that was a choice, and you might feel in support for, or like, well, I had to wrestle with that a little bit. So what are some of those choices that he makes that are...
I want to hear from Sarah and hear about what wasn't working for you, because honestly,
Let's go.
I want to validate that you struggled with this, and that it's possible to watch a movie and appreciate a movie but also not like what was happening. And I think that it's only because I've watched this now 10 or more times
than
right
fingers.
That I've really been able to like settle with it. And let me be clear, like I'll turn it on and I'm like grading stuff, right? So it's not like me sitting prim and proper with my eyes glued to the screen the whole time, right? But I just want to validate that and then hear what some of your thoughts are, because you did just reread the book right now and how that affected you, because my issues, I think we might have some similar issues. So I want
Yeah, I don't, there's quite a few things. And so it's just trying, so like I remember watching it initially, and you know, what the way that his father is portrayed in the movie is very different than the way it's portrayed in the book. What happens to his brother in the book is very different than what happens to the brother in the movie. So even at the beginning of this movie, I was like, these are some like really significant differences that very much affect who Victor is and then how he moves about the world. But seeing the way that like Del Toro almost takes this more like circuitous route to kind of get Victor to where he needs to be in order to become, you know, Dr. Victor Frankenstein. And seeing the way that he makes some of those choices, I was like, do we really need to do that? He also changes some things with Elizabeth, some things that I think make sense, because the piece that I think makes sense is it's a little weird because they're kind of like raised together almost as siblings, but then they get married. And so that's a little weird for us today in 2025. So I think some of those changes make sense, but also for me, that character made no sense in this movie at all. So I either needed Elizabeth to be way weirder it's Mia Goth. She can be weird. Why not
yeah.
just fully go there? Or she needed to be like a little bit more normal for that to work. I also didn't need Christoph Waltz's character. I love Christoph Waltz. He's wonderful. I didn't need that character. So it's things like that. I'm watching and I'm like, I see why you make some of these choices. I can understand it. I don't love it, but like, who the hell am I? Like, you're Guillermo del Toro. Do whatever you want. It's your movie. Your movie is beautiful. So I will watch the beautiful thing, even though I'm not really loving some of these character choices that are being made.
Sara Shea, is that similar to, or are there different qualms that you had, especially being so close to the original story, that you were like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, having to wrestle with it.
Yeah, I think that all of the things that Sarah just said they were on my plate too. So, I mean, just to ruin it for everyone, William in the story is 5 years old and he is killed by the creature. There's no relationship between Elizabeth and the brother. Like, that's not even a thing. He is killed when he is 5. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Elizabeth and Victor, they're each other's love interest. Yes, it's weird that they're raised, but who cares? Okay, they're supposed to be each other's love interest. The creature kills Elizabeth as revenge because Victor will not make him a bride, essentially, a wife. This whole thing where she's married to the brother and then she is being chased by Victor, but also is in love with the creature when they meet. And people are like, that's not what was implied. Victor says that she's attracted to him and she says, absolutely not. Then why does she say, oh, take me away with you? Oh, I can't wait to be dying while you're looking at me with your eyes. That is fundamentally so weird and so wrong. And you're right. Mia Goth is so good at what she does. And I can't tell if she's miscast or if it's just because the character was butchered that it feels wrong. And once I kind of just said, okay, just get over it, just get over it, just get over it, Elizabeth as this sort of everyone's in love with her kind of trope, not a manic pixie dream girl, but kind of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. The creature, of course, is going to be in love with her. Of course, she's going to feel some sort of infinity. And I was able to appreciate those moments, but it creates a whole set of expectations that are not in the novel that Mary Shelley was never intending for anybody to explore. There's reasons why Del Toro makes these choices because it's gothic and that's part of what's supposed to happen. Everything is full emotions. Christoph Waltz's character, again, he's great. Waste of time. I totally just had a thing and now I can't remember what it's. Oh, the fact that Victor like raises the creature for a little while, that's not a thing in the book. He basically kicks the creature out instantaneously. He's so gross that he's so repulsed that he says, I'm done with you. I've created and he tosses him out essentially. And Victor's reaction throughout the novel is this thing is so gross and so horrifying. I can't believe I created this. I want to destroy it, making the creature invincible. And so it's weird. It's just weird. But again, over here in this little box of just watching the movie, absolutely love it. Great. Totally going to buy it. But then over here, I just can't. So I'm living in this dual world of this stuff sucks so much and it's making me so mad. And also this is absolutely brilliant. I know why he did this. And so then I'm basically Victor and the creature. I can't be killed and I'm just fighting over it on the inside.
That was not on my bucket list for this recording, but that was just made me so happy.
That's so good.
Yeah, I think one of the big changes and one of the big critiques of the film is that the view of the creature in the novel is that he is much more violent and much more menacing. And Del Toro has this soft, squishy heart for the creature. I think that's why the comparison to Shape of Water is so interesting, because it is this like misunderstood but deeply empathetic version of what is monstrous in the original version that he's made so empathetic to us as viewers. Clarissa, I'm curious for you, like, how did you feel about some of those like relational dynamics between the creature and Victor Frankenstein, and perhaps the creature and Elizabeth's character? Like, did that work for you, especially kind of having a fresh lens on the story and being able to take along for the journey?
Yeah. Well, so Shape of Water is probably in my like top 20 favorite movies. I love that movie. So I absolutely agree with you there. I think that I was kind of expecting more from Elizabeth, like Mia Goth's character in that sense.
Mm.
And honestly, like I really only have 3 things under my critiques in my notes from this movie. And all of them are, well, all but one are really what we've talked about. I feel like with Elizabeth's character, because again, I had no idea that William was 5, and that, yeah, that's kind of whack. And especially in this, we're like seeing this relationship where Elizabeth and Victor kind of have a budding friendship, and he's like feeling romantically towards her. But she says, like, no. And to me, that was something that in the film I feel like was important. And again, I haven't read the book, but like with this just like fresh set of eyes, I was like, it's actually really nice that we don't have this predictability of like, oh, we're seeing what's implied here. She says no. She's like, you know what? No, like you can't. I know I disagree with you fundamentally on these things, and so this isn't going to happen. And their dynamic completely shifts, and it shifts even like his attitude and narrative in like a way that I actually really liked. But in relation, like in her relationship with the monster or creature, I should say creature, because I feel like there's like that language of either he's creature or monster. So in her relationship with the creature, I feel like it is absolutely like 1 to 100. Where, and this was where I was explaining before. Today I have like Frankenstein watched this movie in the sense that I have watched this movie completely out of sequence in a rewatch today to go back over certain bits of the movie. But I was like, I need to rewatch their dynamic from the moment the creature is created and she is introduced to him, because I feel like, was there something I'm missing? Is it like more cohesive than I'm remembering? And then I was like, no, it's kind of not. And so that was kind of the one thing, is that I think that her speech, and the second time that I rewatched it, I took it as like her dying speech was less about her relationship with him than seeing him as like symbolically those things that she was looking for and trying to make sense of in life. Because she kept saying that, where she was like, I don't feel that with you, Victor. Like, that's not what life's about. And now I think when I was listening to her speech at the end, like re-listening to it, and she's like, your eyes gazing into mine, I think it was a little bit less about him romantically, as opposed to kind of the things that he was representing and the values that she was looking for. So that was kind of how I took that the second time, which feels, again, because that it was so out of nowhere to just be like almost like this love confession when she's shot. But yeah, to me, I was like, this doesn't feel as romantic as it did the first time, where I was trying to make sense of it romantically. And also because he was looking for like companionship. I think it was just like she was looking for something to make sense to her, and him with this like these fresh eyes, he's like new to the world and what he was like representing in life. I don't know, I think that's what she was looking for, and that's why she loved these small creatures, and like there was all this stuff with the butterflies, and like to me it was just he was more symbolic to her than romantic. And so that's what I'm taking that for. But it was a lot more like, wow, that was 1 to 100 if it was romantic. In that case, that there just wasn't enough building there. With her, like as a sub note, I put, I wanted some screams and running in a dress with long hair, because I was like, I was expecting that from like Crimson Peak vibes. I'm like, we've got these like amazing staircases and it's gothic and she's in these gorgeous dresses. And I'm ready for her to like run through this like amazing cavern of this beautiful gothic building, you know, just like so Crimson Peak-esque with like a candlestick, but it didn't happen. So that was one of my gripes. That was just because I was like, I just want to see that. But yeah, so anyway, I feel like their dynamic was kind of interesting, and I'm really excited to read the book and kind of like delve into that. But it was an interesting choice for sure. The other dynamic that I took a note of, and sorry, this is like so tangential.
Yeah, go for it. Yes.
But like so much to break down here. I feel like there was a 0 to 100 with the forgiveness between Victor and the creature. Yeah, I was like, I on my rewatch, I realized that his like blind friend talked about forgiveness and the empowerment that it brings and the peace that it brings and how that is like true freedom and living. And I was listening to that again and I was like, that's planting a seed for that ending. But again, it's like when we're going chronologically and we're talking about these events and the creature had just blown up, like at this point in the story when he's saying I forgive you, the creature had just been bombed. Like he had just been given a stick of dynamite and healed like probably in like 45 minutes to an hour before this. And like literally so soon before this speech. And then it was like, you just blew me up and I just tackled a bunch of people on this ship to get to you, but I do forgive you. And also for Victor to suddenly have this like change of heart with like, you're my son, you're not an it. It's like, no, he's been an it to you this whole time. And now that you're dying, you just like maybe want some like repentance, like a repentant little moment. I don't know. So yeah, that was like those were really my only gripes with it. The rest, I feel like I really liked how the characters interacted. I do feel like Christoph Waltz's character wasn't completely necessary. I do agree with that, but I enjoyed it. And so it's just like, okay, sure, why not? Like throw him in there. I'm having a good time with him until he splats, and we're good. But yeah, I loved like quick positives. Really were so many quotes that I pulled. Like the way of the world, they hunt you and kill you just for being what you are. I feel like it could have been phrased better, but I think that realization with the wolves was really interesting. I felt the music was so perfect for this. Also, this composer never disappoints. My very first note though was moms and dads' coffins in all caps. Wow, bury me like that. Bury me like that. Freaking awesome. So beautiful. And then I put poor monster, he's being mean to him. So those were like my biggest notes, but overall just visually so beautiful. I was paying attention a lot to the way that shadows and lighting was used to emphasize certain colors and certain costumes or like certain emotions. I feel like that's an art form that people don't pay attention enough to, and Guillermo del Toro uses shadows and lights so well on top of colors, and I feel like sometimes people aren't looking for those as much. So if you haven't watched this yet, or if you're just gonna go watch any Guillermo del Toro movie, pay attention to the shadows and the lights. He's so good at it. And then I just really I think it was just amazing to have an experience with the creature. It was so nice to have like an intimate story. Again, like I said, a coming of age story where audiences like me who haven't read the book or haven't really encountered this story as intimately were able to have that experience, have that emotional connection to who we have as like a Halloween symbol. Like he's a timeless Halloween character. And so it's nice to be like, no, the original like interpretation here, there's more to that. And so I was happy I had a sliver of that before diving into the book.
Yeah. I feel like it's so interesting because I feel like we all can see the imperfections of this film, and perhaps I think Sara Shea, your summary was so great around like it is inaccurate but perfect in its ways that it needs to be, and beautiful in its ways that it is, because like the ending apology redemptive sequence, I that was my big squalm with this film, is it happens a little too fast. I love me a forgiveness reconciliation moment. I need it to be earned, and I don't think it was earned. But this is
Yeah.
Del Toro doing his like soft, squishy, wearing his heart on a sleeve and believing the best in all of us, I guess, that he's trying to display. But even despite all of that, there's so much beauty that's infused into this, and intention that's infused in this, that seems so hard to ignore as well. And some of the like shadows and lighting sequences, Clarissa, that you mentioned, are stunning and adds so much to the story. I've heard some folks critique this film of it feeling a little bit like showy, like there's too many wide shots to showcase the rooms and the worlds that have been created. I'm like, that's part of us being sucked into this world, is to see the world that they've created. So I don't totally agree with that critique, but I do feel like this is such an incredibly empathetic version of this story, which some people might not be on board for, especially if you go in with the expectation of this being a Frankenstein film. I actually went in thinking that there's going to be way more horror and violence and like more of that grit into this film, and it's not that at all. It's a deeply empathetic character drama, honestly, and that is such a specific read of the story and interpretation of the story that is a choice. It's a choice, and I feel like whether you agree with it or disagree with it, he's made a choice. He's stuck his stake in the ground, and he wants to tell this story. And it's very much in line with what he seems to be fascinated by in his body of work, which is to take something that is othered and to showcase that they are far more human than we expect them to be. And so it's so Del Toro for him to tell the story in this way. But I can see how it's not what you wanted. And so perhaps, it comes with all of the feelings that need to be worked through. I wonder if this film was not branded as Frankenstein, would it have worked better? Like this is just a creature, in the same way that The Shape of Water, it was a creature and a girl, and they fell in love. Like, would this story be received differently if it wasn't labeled and told from the branding and perspective and the stakes that come with it being a Frankenstein story? Is an interesting thing that I was thinking about, especially with his twist on it that he makes.
I think that is such a great question. And honestly, I think no. I think it has to be Frankenstein. And it says right after the title, based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It does not say this is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And I had to keep reminding myself of that. I don't think it would have the same emotional resonance because Del Toro so specifically loves this story in particular, identifies with these characters so specifically that packaging it as something else, stripping stuff away, would be a disservice to him. And then I also think the audience, because he's essentially putting his heart on a platter, right? And it's him saying, this is how I'm grappling with these characters and this storytelling, and let me show you how I envision it. And I think that again, the inaccuracies are significant.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take someone like Del Toro, who understands so much about filmmaking in general, not just the typical narrative storytelling, right? Like writing the script, because he wrote this script, right? But as Clarissa is talking about shadows, the color scheme, as you were saying, the wide shots showing all of the different sets, which are sumptuous, even as we're looking at things that are decaying, right? How can you make that fascinating and gorgeous to look at when it's gross? The fact that this is a horror story one of the things that I've always kind of not liked about different adaptations of the story is not showing how gross the concept of Frankenstein dismembering bodies and sewing them back together. His whole point in the novel, and this comes across in the kind of in the original version as well, he does not want to revive someone who is dead. It must be different body parts put together because he wants to create life where life never existed before. And if you take someone who's dead and you electrify them, then it's kind of a facsimile, right? A zombie, but it could just be the electrical impulses going, which we see him messing around with in this movie, and it's disgusting. We see him pull apart a leg and insert a bone. Like it's so gross. It is so gross. And like I want my dad to watch this movie, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get him to do it because it's so gross. But that fundamentally is part of this story. The novel itself is a horror story, and every version has been a horror story, and some have shown some gross stuff, but this one I feel really fully shows it and continues to show it when we have these kind of horrifying shots of Christoph Waltz's character getting brained on the floor, ripping out the spine of a wolf. All of these things, they're horrifying, but they continue to be horrifying because it's such a contrast or juxtaposition to all of the gentleness that we see with the creature. And he is actually like that in the novel. He is a horrible murderer who goes on a rampage, and he is also the guy hiding next to the cottage doing favors for this family, crying because he wants to introduce himself to them, communing with nature, learning how to read. Those are all real components. He's a bad guy, and yet he's a good guy at the same time. Frankenstein's character is a good guy and a bad guy at the same time. He's a little bit one note in this movie, however. Him losing a leg is like the physical karma of him being a jerk, right? Okay, I get it, I buy it, and I actually appreciate it. And so one of the weird things that comes up in this movie is the ending is kind of accurate. Sarah, knowing how the novel ends, how did you feel about this ending?
I hated it.
Please, could explain that, because it is very different, even though it's very much the same.
Yes.
But so I want to hear what you have to say.
No, I think, you made the point earlier, Jen, that it feels unearned, and that's very much how this feels. Also, just in like time frame, didn't the creature like kill 6 members of the crew like, I don't know, a day or two ago? I don't know how much time Victor has been like chilling in the captain's quarters. But so it all just it didn't work for me. I could buy the film version of the creature being like, I forgive you, and like extending that. I do not buy Victor being like, my son. Get that out of here. Nope. Victor is the worst the entire movie.
Yeah.
Haiku, you nailed it. Victor is the worst. And so I would have bought him being cold and heartless there at the end, and the creature still extending that forgiveness. And I think that would have been an interesting contrast between the two characters that I maybe could have bought. I still would have some qualms about that, but that would make more sense to me. I prefer how the book ends, which is not as pretty, tied up in a bow, feel good, which like I'm not as much of like a feel good person as you are, Jen.
But explicitly say what happens to the creature at the end of the book.
Yeah, he
spoiler. Yeah.
So the creature shows up after Victor is already dead. And so I think that that's an interesting piece of it. And Victor had commissioned the captain of the boat to kill the creature, and the captain doesn't. He lets the creature go off by himself to kill himself, basically. And so what I really appreciate about the end of the book is that there's almost this like there's this symbiotic nature between Victor and the creature. And Victor is like chasing the creature all throughout the tundra and stuff, but the creature is like leaving things for Victor. Like the creature understands that they're like yin and yang almost, and they're these two opposing forces that like need each other, and the creature understands that connection. And the book really like bears that out. So then it makes sense. Victor has died, so now the creature knows he also must die. So it's just this really it's an appropriately depressing ending for what is a depressing and horrifying book. Whereas I feel like in the movie, and that's just who Guillermo del Toro is. Like he wants you to feel good about life and the monsters and humanity and all of the things. So I understand why we got the ending, but I hated it.
So it's so funny as you're describing this and them as the yin and yang, it made me think of like one can't live without the other. And that made me think of Harry Potter and Voldemort. And because they kind of chase each other and fight. And I wonder if Rowling was inspired by this a little bit just off the cuff. But I think that you are so right. The creature at the end of the novel decides to kill himself, to immolate himself. He sets himself on fire along with all of Victor's journals and notes because he had read Victor's journal and understood that Victor hated him. And they have this big long conversation about my creator hates me. He's had no relationship with him. But he kills himself, sets himself on fire along with all of the written stuff so that nobody else can ever replicate what Victor did. And it's with the knowledge that, yes, Victor created life and the creature wants to live, but he knows that he can't and he shouldn't. So there is sort of a forgiveness component of I myself cannot exist because my existence has been so terrible and so awful, but I need to make sure that this never happens ever again. And it is very tragic, but it's also incredibly poetic and horribly beautiful at the same time. But you can understand why Del Toro decided to do it this way. Of course, you can't kill the creature. He made him a superhero, right? He's indestructible. He can't set himself on fire. He literally gets blown up by dynamite, and we see his like shredded hand, which is so cool. But what are you gonna do? They can't fight to the death. So it's the ending to me was like, well, okay, I'm on the journey. Most of the things have gone well. At least there's the framing story of the ship, and he doesn't set the ship free in the book. That's not possible. He
doesn't develop super strength at the end.
I mean, it's freaking cool, but also, come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much more of a hopeful ending in Del Toro's version of Frankenstein, which is perhaps the headspace that he's in right now in his life, and especially in a story around what's so clearly the complicated generational family traumas. And the triumph of this version of Frankenstein is not him ending the hubris of man with science. It is him choosing to set himself free from an eternal life of anger and rage that will ultimately be the thing that haunts him. Like, what I think gives me hope. I mean, I do think the ending's a little bit too sweet for me, and I love me a sweet reconciliatory ending, okay? But the thing that gives me hope about the ending is the fact that Victor in his final moments is still self-centered, is still selfish. All he wants to do is hear the creature say, Victor, say my name again the way that you said it the first time, which ultimately is him looking out for his peace so that he can die well. It's not about it's actually not a true reconciliation at all in the like full healing version of what a reconciliation between two people that have hurt each other very deeply over time have done. Because Victor is not oriented to heal the wounds for the creature at all. It's about him. Give me the sound of you saying my name the way that I want to hear it, and then I can be released to go die in peace. And so the fact that the creature still chooses to show him grace and still chooses to give him what he wants is him ultimately saying, I am setting myself free from a lifetime of rage that will ultimately eat me away. And that's him putting all that like generational family, father traumas behind, and him finding a new path forward and kind of turning the page into his new chapter. So I think that is the one thing that saves the ending a little bit for me from being really too much. And I love me some sweet icing, but I think the fact that Victor is still self-centered by the end and the creature chooses to give that grace is okay. I can sit with that. That feels realistic, you know? That's cynical enough to be real to me. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious if there's any other major choices or plot points or even other like filmmaking choices that Del Toro makes in this version of Frankenstein that we wanted to highlight, mention. Yes, Clarissa.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was like, the visuals, I just have had so many things flooding back to my mind while we've been chatting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta mention that. Oh my gosh, I gotta mention that. One thing that I noticed off the bat is plants in this movie. And I thought that was really fun because not only do they like introduce color, but there's like clearly intentionality. And one thing that we've talked about a lot in one of my like film classes, I'm in a film theory class right now, and we've talked a lot about like the apparatus and like auteur theory of, you know, like who is the true author here, who is developing what, is it like, is this now its own thing because it's become its own rendition, morphed with Guillermo del Toro and Mary Shelley, right? Like it's just its own separate from both Guillermo del Toro's who he is and Mary Shelley. And so that's like fun to like break into. But seeing now this mixture and being intentional about it of like, okay, we have clearly every single thing in front of this screen is intentional. And we talked about framing and all those things. And we know that about Guillermo del Toro. But that's also just like the theory of mise en scène of like everything you see is there for a reason. They chose it to be there. And so I was looking at, because again, this budget, I mean, it's a Netflix film. So you know they had a pretty big budget. When they're in the forest and he clearly doesn't fit behind the trees as he's watching this family and all of this stuff, it's like, okay, so at first I was like, oh, there's no way he's hiding. He's massive. He is so massive. And I can see him right through that stick. But I was like, you know what? They chose that tree. And they chose the trees behind it, and they chose the colors and that whole scene. And I started paying attention to that. But I was looking at how plants and greenery were really reflective of the color green in the kind of lab and like all these different moments, even like the green hues in his skin at parts where like he looked more green than blue and gray at times. And I was paying attention a lot to how this like massive tower was really lush with life compared to their homes and all of these other places. And again, that kind of hints to it being like abandoned or like it hasn't been maintained or whatever. But I'm like, no, this is crawling with life everywhere. And they have the flowing water where he's being kept and he's playing with the water. And even though the watercolor, like in a color scheme, isn't the same, thematically it fits in so well. And like watching that leaf and having the leaf like be symbolic of that and having the leaf come back later, there was just so much I was paying attention to with these plants. And I thought that was really interesting because also the vines look very much like veins. And we're looking at the, what is it, the lymphatic system all laid out and all of these different systems. And we were talking about the way that he's putting the body together and you're seeing the like organic way that bodies and muscles look and flow. And there's always been that kind of like philosophical or like visual feeling behind how our bodies like can look like natural, like the natural world if we're looking closely enough. And I feel like I saw that a lot. And so I loved that Guillermo del Toro did that, because it's like there's no way that was a mistake. There's no way that wasn't intentional. I see it, I feel it, and I know him like too well as a director to be like, that was so intentional. But he was intentional with so many other things too. One thing that I want to talk about was his staging and kind of blocking. And there was one part that this really, really stood out to me, was when the creature came back to Victor and asked for companion. That whole scene, in the way it was blocked, was crazy good. It was crazy good because like he turns his back to the creature and looks at himself in the mirror, and he is talking he's seemingly talking about the creature, but he says wicked and deformed. And he now doesn't have a leg, and he is wicked, and he's staring at himself in the mirror, and we don't see the creature. And that blocking is so intentional because he is looking at himself, even though he's talking to the creature like through the mirror. He's still, and it's almost like a conversation of trust with the way that he is facing the mirror, and almost even pride and arrogance of like, you can't hurt me enough for me to feel like I need to face you forward with my feet in like a sturdy stance in case you come at me. I can turn my back to you and it doesn't matter. But he still has that feeling. It was just so good. There were so many messages in that. So this is one to also pay attention to the blocking and the entire like scene between Victor and Christoph Waltz's character, whose name has completely left my mind in the story. But when they're having, yes, when they're having this like kind of fight, the staging of that, and like this ego playing, and even like the sickness and like body, I don't know, not like just the way that their bodies are playing into the way the bodies are presented in this movie, and him having syphilis, and it was just so good. So it definitely just so much messaging in all of those things, and so it's fun to look at it that way visually. But there was a lot to look at visually and really break down, like take this movie scene for scene. It's one that I feel I'm really excited for my class, because I feel like there's no way we're not going to spend like 2 weeks talking about this adaptation and breaking down all of those facets. So yeah, some of my favorite little tidbits there.
No, that's so good. And Del Toro is such a master at weaving together the visual and the emotional together. And I think all of those moments that you've highlighted are such great examples of how like everything is so intentionally designed in his world. And him and his entire team have specifically chosen color palettes, textures, lighting choices to bring the emotions to life, and how the staging supports like what's happening internally in the characters as well, and for the emotions of the moment. So, man, so good. And so many of those things, I feel like in the first watch, you're just so sucked in the story that there isn't fully the capacity to see all of the intentional construction of those shots and those moments in all its fullness and all its glory. Yeah, so good.
Mhm.
Clarissa, you're gonna love the making of featurette. You're
Oh
gonna,
my gosh, yeah.
I'm
It
so
is-
excited, you
it is
guys.
right up your alley. One of the things that Del Toro actually talks about in that little featurette is this, you, as I think a couple of you have said already, like the generational trauma, fathers and
Mhm.
sons, and those sorts of relationships. And as cheesy as it is with Victor at the end saying, okay, son, I'm your father, whatever. Okay. However, it is a really great parable about parenting and Victor's disappointment with the creature not responding the way that he initially wants him to. Ultimately, the creature does learn how to read and write and is much more of an enriched individual than Victor gives him credit for at the beginning. And that's part of Elizabeth's insight, right? He keeps saying Victor because your name is the most important name. So he's saying Victor instead of mom, right? But the idea of, as a parent, wanting your children to be something, even those of us who are excellent parents, struggle to give our children room to grow and make mistakes and to not please us with their behavior 100% of the time. That is what is so challenging about being a parent and being a teacher and being a human in the world, is other people are not always going to function and interact with you the way that you demand. And that is part of being human. And when we become so rigid that we cannot allow others the flexibility to be human and to make mistakes and to be fully flawed, even as we are wonderfully made, this film, I think, showcases that in such a fascinating, painful, and beautiful way. When we see Victor beating the creature because he's not doing what he wants, but you can see that he is so frustrated, but he cannot explain to the creature what he actually wants from him. He can't. If they could communicate telepathically, maybe, but he can't do that. And he's so mad and so frustrated. And the creature is so mad and so frustrated. And they're just not able to communicate with each other. But that sometimes is what real life is like, even with people that we desperately love and people that we desperately care for. That doesn't excuse bad behavior, of course, right? But I feel that that message Del Toro very specifically wanted to convey, and I think he does that in spades in this film. And it's hard to watch. And even if that component of Victor raising the creature for a little bit beforehand isn't in the original text, it's an effective way to create their relationship and build that tension that leads to this very, very tragic ending.
And especially seeing the way that Victor only is operating out of things that he's received as a young child before. Those few segments I think are essential. Some people might say it's too much, but I think it's essential to understanding the heart of the story, which is that Victor is the worst, to quote Sara Shea again. But he's also a product of the environments he's grown up in and the type of disciplining and parenting that he's received, and it's instinctual that is his reaction when he's feeling overwhelmed and feeling all this emotion. Doesn't excuse his behavior, but also we can understand where it's coming from. And so I think Victor is appropriately monstrous in a lot of ways, but also Del Toro has given us enough to empathize and understand why he is the way that he is, and he's a product of his environment and has perpetuated that into what he's created and how he's parenting the creature as well too. So yeah, it is really a story about father-son generational family traumas. We are products of where we come from, but also how do we redeem and break some of those things so that we can do better for the future. And ultimately it seems like the creature's broken free a little bit. He's staring into the Star Wars sunset and becoming a superhero to make the world a better place for us. Oh gosh, we need the creature.
Can we just talk for just a moment about Jacob Elordi? I think his casting initially was one of the things I was most worried about, because he's known to just be so beautiful, and I was just like, oh, come on now. How are you serious? Like, are they okay? So either they're going to make him so unrecognizable that he's not going to be able to emote, or he's going to be so beautiful that I'm not going to buy it. And I will tell you, in the main cast, I actually think that he does the best job out of everyone. Oscar Isaac, he's okay. Mia Goth, we've already talked about it. Christoph Waltz, so sorry, we can't remember your name because you're a made-up character. He's fine, whatever. But Jacob Elordi as this creature, I was shocked and pleasantly dismayed at how much I actually really liked his performance, because I think it did defy all of my very low expectations. I think a lot of the rest of the cast and minor characters, excellent job. Love that it's Argus Filch as the old blind man. He's playing such a wonderful, compassionate character. But he's a sexy creature. I've already read so many horrible things online about women objectifying him, and he looks like Rocky Horror in his little gold panties. But he does an excellent job, and I just want to say I wanted to appreciate that. And it's not because he's naked. It's because he actually is doing, I think, a really good job at acting. And he says that like this role has transformed him as a regular person, that it allowed him to do things that he didn't think that he could do and to express himself in ways. And I just think that that's pretty awesome.
Totally agree. Honestly, the only other thing I've seen him in is Kissing Booth. I haven't seen Saltburn. Night and day. And you know what, you guys? There are very few people that I actively like hate on. There are actually really only two people that I hate on.
Who's the other?
And Joey King is one of them. And I've just remembered him as the guy who dated Joey King after, is that her name?
Yes.
Kissing Booth. Yeah. So I just remembered him as like the guy who dated Joey King, and I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, come on!" It's so dumb, you guys. It's literally the dumbest, and I'm so aware of it. But I think that was something I had in my mind going into this movie, and I really just was pleasantly surprised. I agree. Like honestly, his performance emotionally, showing like cognitive development as an adult was really great. I loved that, and I also really loved the way that he was intentional with his speaking. I mean, clearly some of that is writing, some of that is editing, but I think at the end of the day, like really it comes down to like he made those choices in the way that he's delivering those things. And I just felt like he did such a good job. I was so pleasantly surprised, and it makes me so excited to see things from him going forward. So yeah, 100% Jacob Elordi. And yeah, also I'm sorry he saw it. So like not as the creature. I will say I'm not gonna objectify him as the creature. But yeah, his interviews have been like mighty fine.
Honestly, this was a genius move for the marketing of this film to draw in a more diverse audience than just the people that would have showed up for a Del Toro film. And yeah, gonna open up so many more opportunities for him, for everyone that thought he was one type of actor. He can clearly do a lot more. He does so much with his eyes, and then he does so much with the physicality of like his movements that are so expressive. So this is a win for Jacob Elordi, and gosh, what is he going to do next? Yeah, I think I remember reading about how like originally they were going to have like Andrew Garfield or something play this character, and then he dropped out, and then he was kind of a last minute pick. Yeah, so very fascinating, but he is one in many people's books, and especially Clarissa's book. It sounds like he's been redeemed, and yeah,
wait till you see Saltburn. Oh
yeah. I've heard things. But I that is a movie I will be going in blind. I don't know a thing about it other than like
which is the way. That's the way to go into that movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
That will be good.
But please tell us your thoughts about it afterwards.
Oh yeah, I need an immediate phone call.
Yes, I will call. I am like, I will message in our group chat 100%.
Please do.
But yes, I'm so happy he broke out of like the Netflix romantic lead. There are like a couple of people who have just really stayed in that category, and I feel like sometimes Matthew McConaughey actually talked about like how hard it is to break out of like the rom-com lead actor like roles, and you have to just be very intentional about those decisions. And so I'm really happy knowing that he was in that box, that he made it out of that box. You know, and he did it really gracefully, and he did it with a bang. This is a great role. Great role. And Saltburn, apparently, I haven't seen it. But for this one, great.
Yeah, he did an incredible job. Yeah. Well, I feel like we've covered a really great balance of the things that we wrestled with Frankenstein, and then ultimately the things that really make Frankenstein a special experience from a director that has earned his stripes and have been given the opportunity to make this film with a message that is clearly so dear to his heart, that he cares so deeply about. And I think that heart that Del Toro has for this is like so apparent, regardless of how you feel about it. Like he cares about telling this story in this way. And gosh, there's so much to love about this. So this was our review and discussion of Frankenstein. You can find it available on Netflix. And we have to, like, shameless plug, you have to go watch the anatomy lesson featurette afterwards. I think it's one of the benefits of this being a Netflix release is that people can actually go and watch the recommended special immediately afterwards to go experience this story here. So yeah, thank you for listening to this week's episode of Movies and Us, and a big thank you to you both, Klarissa and Sara, for joining us on this episode of Frankenstein. Where can people find more of you, follow, and connect more with you on the interwebs?
So yeah, I am Sara Shea from Shea Cinema. I do a podcast with my father. We are watching in chronological order every film nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. We do lots of historical context, lots of baseball facts, because that's what Dad and I like, goofy stuff. But we are currently in the middle of the year 1933, which coincides with the 6th Academy Awards, and we are getting back into producing and creating new episodes. Clarissa's going to be on our very next episode whenever I can get that one edited. You can find us on any streaming platform, and you can find me sometimes on Instagram and Threads at Shea Cinema. That's SHEA, like the former Shea Stadium in New York, which no longer exists, but we still exist. The podcast does exist.
Love it, love it. What about you, Klarissa?
Awesome. I've seen that one on Instagram and TikTok, but that is also the same for my podcast, which should be everywhere that you get podcasts. I have just been going through a film journey where I haven't seen a ton of classics, and so I've been chipping away at these classics that I'd never seen that people would consider classics, and I decided to make a book for people who are going on the same journey. And so that's what my podcast follows, is my book going through movies that I think everyone should see when they have a chance, and then talking about it with pals, aka all of you. So very fun, but really I can't thank you guys enough for having me. This was so special, and I absolutely love your show, so thank you so much for having me back.
This was so fun. Honestly, this was one of our anticipated episodes of the year to get to talk about this film together with the two of you. So we will include all of the link in the show notes to all of the goodness, the ways to connect with Sara and Klarissa, follow their shows, listen to their content. They're absolutely amazing, thoughtful, insightful film critics, and just love the medium so deeply, which I think is so apparent, and have a lot to say all the time about all the things. We've got lots of opinions around here. We love it. Our name, Movies and Us, sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories, so everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review letting us know your thoughts about Frankenstein and Del Toro's take on this iconic story. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at moviesnuspod, or email us at moviesnuspod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on Movies and Us and our other podcast, TV and Us. We will be back very soon with an episode about the Cinema Legacy Poll and both my and Sarah's top 8 to 10 picks, so stay tuned for that. And then we have some exciting content coming out around the film Honey June, and some conversations with the director of that film, which has been very exciting. So lots of good stuff coming. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk to y'all again very soon.